Make sure to check out my Covey account, link down in the description. Kept you waiting, huh? I'm back, baby!
His name is Henry. He's all about those classics. Dust off the old ones and gives them shine. He finds some goodies and finds you some baddies. And reviews ones folks from forgot. His name is Henry. He's over the
Can't be done, I tell you. Can't be done.
20th century reviews are here. 20th century reviews are here.
Hello, I'm Henry R. Mockingbird, your host with the mustache, and welcome to Season 7 of 20th Century Reviews. And to start off this season, we're going to be talking about a Peter Lorre film called Mad Love. So, let's get started. Actress Yvonne is touring in Paris while her biggest fanboy, Dr. Gogol, is admiring her. Her fiancé, who happens to be a piano player named Stephen Orlock, happens to be coming home when on his way home his hands get horribly mangled. They have no choice but to amputate them, but Yvonne won't let that happen, so her only choice is to go to Dr. Gogol, who gives Orlock a new set of hands. But these hands just so happen to belong to a knife-wielding murderer. And what do you know? Those hands take on a mind of their own and still have the urge to kill. So, what are my thoughts on Mad Love? Well, I can't compare it to the original film it was based on, The Hands of Orlock, but when taken on its own, it's pretty damn good. With great performances from Peter Lorre and Colin Clive, and amazing cinematography, this is just a solid take on the mad scientist genre. Despite it not being Frankenstein, it's still really great. The film was based on the German book Hands of Orlock, which oddly enough already had a film adaptation with Conrad Veidt and from the director of Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. The film was directed by Carl Feind, who also directed the 1932 Mummy, and did cinematography for films like Metropolis, Dracula, as well as Kate Largo, starring Edward G. Robinson and Humphrey Bogart and Lionel Barrymore. And Mad Love was his last film before he returned to cinematography for the rest of his life. The cinematography for Mad Love was done by Greg Tolan, who also did cinematography for Citizen Kane. New Yorker critic Pauline Kael accused Orson Welles of ripping off Mad Love, even though both Mad Love and Citizen Kane both had the same cinematographer. Peter Lorre only agreed to be in this film if Columbia financed his next film, Crime and Punishment. Studio head Harry Cohen, who Peter Lorre pitched the idea of making Crime and Punishment, he agreed if he was able to loan Lorre to MGM for Mad Love. The film ended up having many alternate names, including The Hands of Orlok, which ended up being the alternate title for the film, and Mad Doctor of Paris before deciding to settle on Mad Love. 15 minutes ended up being cut from the film. The film ended up being directed by John L. Belverston, who also wrote for the original Dracula play as well as the movie, wrote for Frankenstein and its sequel, Bride of Frankenstein, and wrote for The Mummy and Mark of the Vampire. And it was also written by Guy Endore, who would also get an Oscar nomination for his work on the story of G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe! When the film finally came out, it got good reviews from the New Yorker and Hollywood Reporter, and even Charlie Chaplin called it one of the greatest films he had ever seen. This movie has great cinematography with some stunning visuals that almost feel like something that like David Lynch would do. This movie is still a better attempt at being David Lynch than whatever the grift the jar was. Don't worry. You will have your day. I will see to it. Let's get back to the review. There's a great scene where we see the wife having a dream about Dr. Orlok's condition, and we get a visual of a piano and a train, and we see this until we see the face of the doctor. These effects also are really good to show the passage of time. Like after Orlok gets his new hands, we see them tested, and the testing and the visuals for it are fantastic. Several dissolves to show the passage of time. Opening credits are of a snowy window and a hand breaking through the glass. Talk about opening your film off with a literal punch. And then the film opens with a shot of a hangman, which is just a prop because this whole place happens to be a museum of horrors. And we see this man wearing a demon mask selling a ticket to Dr. Gogol. And then a dude dressed like a ghoul lets him in holding a bone in his hand and closing the door with it. We see Dr. Gogol admiring a marble statue of Yvonne. And if the dude holding a bone and dressed like a ghoul wasn't weird enough, and a dude dressed like a goblin demon wasn't weird enough, we see Dr. Gogol giving his coat to what looks like a dude dressed like the Headless Horseman. You could make a whole horror movie around this place. Let's talk about Dr. Gogol. I love Dr. Gogol's look with the bald head and the fur coat. It almost is like a cross between Lex Luthor and Kraven the Hunter. I'm just gonna say this. I would still rather watch this movie in its entirety than ever watch Kraven the Hunter. Goggle, in a strange way, is an unintentional commentary on incels and possessive fanboys, as he is quite possessive over Yvonne and believes he can have only her and nobody else can. Don't believe me? Well, after a birthday party, which looks like the birthday party for the Addams family, he ends up buying the statue, which is being taken away, and ends up paying for this statue and taking it to his house, where his maid, a really weird maid with a cockatoo, and she drinks quite a lot. Even W.C. Fields would be telling her to cut back on the booze. And what is with her having a cockatoo? Dr. Goggle is so possessive over her and believes he can only be in love with only her, when Yvonne pretty much tells him to back off. He starts getting voices in his head and starts seeing the reflection in the mirror talking to him. Also, kind of a creepy weirdo, as after he comes home from scaring Orlok, Yvonne has to pretend that she is the statue because she broke the statue. And Yvonne thinks that she is the statue. Then when she finally moves, he thinks that the statue has come to life. And he also goes to a beheading of the killer. Yeah, to quote Linkara on this one,
"Hey, Norman Bates called. He said you're really kind of a weirdo."
Here's a bombshell for you. The knife-wielding murderer who we only see in this scene and the train scene, and who is about to be beheaded, is played by Eddie Profane, who appeared with Buster Keaton in The Doughboys, appeared in the Three Stooges short Swing Parade of 1946, appeared in The Invisible Man and The Thin Man, but probably his most famous role is playing Timothy Mouse in Dumbo. And he was one of the cops, and it happened on Fifth Avenue, appearing alongside Arthur Hall, who was a butler in Kennel Murder Case. Wow! Isn't that taking a step back in the Wayback Machine? If it wasn't weird enough having Timothy the Mouse, aka Eddie Profane, we also have Billy Gilbert as an autograph hound who wants the killer's autograph. Why would he want an autograph? I have no idea. but he was in a bunch of Laurel and Hardy shorts and is probably best remembered for playing Sneezy in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. What is this crossover? Timothy versus Sneezy, Dawn of Magic? Or Timothy v Sneezy, Dawn of Magic?
Why did you say that name?
Beheading his newspaper reporter, Reagan, who happens to be a wisecracker and is also a bit of a smart aleck. He has a funny bit where he's sick to his stomach every time he appears at a beheading, and he's played by Ted Healy, who people who are fans of the Three Stooges might recognize him as he was the Three Stooges' former boss, coined the name Ted Healy and his Stooges. Him and the Three Stooges appeared alongside each other in several films, including short films like Nursery Rhymes.
Way up in the mountains in the log cabin, and you open the window, and the sunshine in the morning smacks you right in the face. What was that? I say you get yourself a log cabin, and you open the window, and in the morning the sunshine smacks you right in the face.
Rhymes, Beer and Pretzels, and Hello Pop, as well as Plain Nuts, Big Idea, and appeared in movies like The Dancing Lady and Meet the Baron, before they ended up breaking up, and Ted Healy would continue acting at Fox, MGM, and Warner Brothers up until his death. Reagan isn't just a comic relief, as he does some investigating on the doctor's whole racket, trying to find any evidence on him. In fact, he's the one who puts the pieces together about the doctor. And then there's Yvonne, and her maid is played by Sarah Hayden, who was also Aunt Millie in the Andy Hardy series. Yvonne stars in what looks like the medieval stage version of 50 Shades of Grey, where she's put on a torture rack, and Yvonne is a very good wife, as she does anything for her husband, Orlok, going as far as to go out to the train wreck to find him. Really loves Stepan and will do anything to help him. And speaking of which, let's talk about the main character of this movie, Stepan Orlok, played by Colin Clive. And while this role isn't as iconic as Dr. Frankenstein, this character is a lot more sympathetic than Dr. Frankenstein. You really feel for Stepan, as he has lost everything, and everything is out of his hands, quite literally. And he can't play the piano like he used to. His father is an absolute jerk. His father shuns him and ridicules him just for being a piano player and marrying an actress. They get into a heated argument, and his hands take control, which causes him to go crawling to Dr. Gogol. And Dr. Gogol tells him that his hands once belonged to a knife-wielding murderer who's still alive. But wait a minute, you might say. Didn't the murderer get killed by decapitation? Well, here comes the creepy part.
He put it back.
Damn! disturbing can a movie get? Ugh. It is so disturbing. I feel like this scene works so well because it's all done in silence. In a modern horror movie, like let's say Sing 2, there would be a loud music sting. Here, the silence is enough to scare you. Mad Love is a madly good film and a solid mad scientist movie. I say check it out. 5 gold stars. That's pretty much all I have to say about Mad Love. Well, until the next review, I'm Henry Mockingbird, your host with the mustache, signing off.